Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Manufacturing Transformed. You know, I often talk about this industry being filled with people that are technicians who then get into business ownership and oftentimes struggle with that. And I know it's not easy, but Tim Rousseau from Above All CNC does a great job on this episode of being in that position, but sharing how he has grown and led this business from I think, a very compassionate place and a very sort of business oriented and metrics and systems and processes. And probably, well, I know is doing, exceptionally well for someone that was a machinist, no formal training in business, but decided to start his own shop. And it's super gratifying to be able to help, a good salt of the earth person like him who's really out there to help other people and do well in the process, that he's using ProShop very effectively to that end. So it was a super fun conversation. Yeah, we'll just super proud of being able to support a company like this and a person like this that's really building this manufacturing economy that we need to have. That's so, we need to have strength in our country. So let's go hear all about it from Tim at Above All CNC. Tim, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. So for those that don't know who you are, like I do, give us a little bit of the background of your shop and yourself.
Yeah. So, my name is Tim Rousseau. I have been in this industry for about 20 years now. Started right out of high school, picked up a broom in a shop and started sweeping floors and, became very, very, entrenched in the industry after high school. I came from a family of engineers. My grandfather worked with like JPL during the Apollo era. And then my dad is still an electrical engineer, lots of, fancy projects that he's worked on in the past. So I was always kind of drawn to this industry. Yeah, I got involved at a young age. Like I said, sweeping floors and worked through kind of the 2008 economic collapse when all of that happened, and wound up being the only employee to survive the layoffs when that happened.
Oh, at the shop you were at the time?
Yeah, at the shop I was at the time, and it was probably because I was making like $10 an hour, so I was very cheap.
Not because you were the best one.
Well, I was ambitious too and got along with the boss, but yeah, so he sort of gave me a key to the place and access to the software, and was like, "Hey kid, we're going to do this, and you got to learn it, and we'll give you a couple of months to really wrap your head around the software and everything." And so that's what I did, and I just didn't stop. So I worked for him for about 13 years. Yeah, we had a little bit of a falling out, and decided to start my own place in 2016, and so that shop is called Above All CNC. What drove me to that was I felt that where I was working before was a good opportunity to learn, but I felt a little, hamstringed with regard to, implementing new technologies. Like that time, 5-axis was becoming more popular. I think Haas had just introduced like their UMC 750, which was this extremely cost-effective 5-axis platform, and then software became the driving force behind that. And the gentleman that owned the shop before just didn't really want to make that investment, and so it became frustrating in that sense. So an opportunity kind of presented itself. One of the local kind of longtime machinists had a smaller pared down operation from what he had before. And unfortunately, he got very sick and was looking to exit pretty rapidly in an asset sale. So that opportunity presented itself, and got some family to help me out with some startup costs. And the takeaway from that really was, it was tough to begin the business with one older VF2 and, a bandsaw and a cabinet full of some carbide tools. But I did have all the fundamental, all of the things that I needed in order to be able to make parts, and some interest from some local customers, just kind of based off of my reputation in the community.
Yeah.
And so I just jumped headlong into that. I didn't have kids at the time, so I really didn't have much to lose. And yeah, just ran the company for about a year on my own, which was nice, just to be able to kind of pour yourself into it. And shortly after getting my second machine, after about a year, I was like, oh boy, it's time to hire somebody. And then we had a baby on the way and everything. So it was like, this is not sustainable if I don't start delegating some tasks. So yeah, that's about how it started off, I
That was
suppose.
around 2016, you said.
Yeah, July 2016. So we're coming up next month. July 1st will be our ninth anniversary of being in business. So
Wow. Very cool. I love that origin. Thank you to your family for helping out with the funding and getting off the ground.
yeah, paid them all back, very early with interest, and yeah, so it all worked out pretty well. It was just really good timing too. It was right around when the industry started to really pick back up. And so a lot of it maybe was attributed to some luck in that regard, but yeah, it was best decision I've made so far. So as far as careers go, you
Yes,
know.
understood. And so you hired your second employee 2017-ish, and then sort of, yeah, maybe tell us a little bit about sort of the growth over the next few years.
Yeah, so in the falling out of the other shop, it was me and a couple of other guys that I knew very well. We were roommates at the time, and kind of parted ways in our occupations. I started my own thing, and basically just let them know, hey, when I'm ready, I'll call you if you wanna hop on board. And so they were all about it. Were definitely instrumental in the growth because we all knew how to work together really well already. We knew the process.
And if I could ask, what was it? There was clearly, if they were happy to come and join you, perhaps some of the same reasons that you fell out with the last shop, they may not have wanted to stay as well. Is there some learning there that take away for what that guy did or didn't do that wasn't able to? Well,
It's one of those instances where you know you learn a lot from I learned a lot from that person, and I also learned a lot about how not to do things, and how to treat people. He was a little more old school, if you will, so very hard line, like this needs to be done today, like no exceptions, like, lunch break is 30 minutes, not 31 minutes, like very just cracking the whip. And I just noticed even myself, it was almost like a traumatic experience, like you can't really give your best work and be engaged from a place of fear. And, that, and there was never, a system for like performance reviews or any kind of real meaningful feedback and like structured growth within the company. So I knew right off the bat, like not only do I need to make sure that anybody that I hire is being given opportunities for growth and constructive feedback, raises, and what have you, but they also need to have access to like a comfortable work environment, a safe work environment, and meaningful and progressive technology that is going to broaden their skill sets, and really just embrace that. So that tends to be the feedback I get from people that I interview even today. They're like, geez, you have everything. You're doing mill turn, you're doing 5-axis, all these laser inspections and CMMs and vision inspection and what have you, and you can eat off the floor in the shop. So it's really just unlike any of the other shops in this region. I think definitely gives them something that they can be proud of, and kind of take ownership in. And, they're happy to bring their wives and kids by or something like that and show them where dad or mom works. And they all love it too. They're just like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea anything like this existed, So,
that's cool.
so yeah.
You said safety, and I'm sure physical safety is important, but you meant psychological safety, didn't you?
Both for sure. Yeah, I mean, it was a place where we worked before, where maybe you leave your calipers on the workbench over the weekend, and you come in after a rainstorm, and you now have fluid-filled dial calipers, meaning like the roof was leaking
Oh, wow,
horribly, and
gosh.
yeah, just a lot of probably very big like OSHA violations and things like that coming out of that place. So, we're doing everything by the book here, MSDS sheets, all that stuff, like controlling the climate and the environment in the shop with filtration and what have you. And yeah, like a lot of preventative maintenance, and other safety apparatuses, like people not overstressing their bodies trying to lift barrels of chips and dump them. It's like, hey, they sell things for forklifts or whatever to handle that, and it might cost $1,000 for a forklift extension or something, and that's something that was just completely off the table before. So yeah, that's kind of sort of my philosophy is I want to make sure that everybody's being treated with the respect they deserve, and as I would want to be treated as well in a work environment. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that same story so many times. And before we hit record, you were talking about listening to the episode with Perry that released this week. And he
Yeah.
talked about how his dad was just really hard on the employees, sounds
Yeah.
similar to your old boss.
Yeah, and it's a generational thing, and I mean, they all built great things, in the past with that mindset, and so I can't fault it too much, but I do catch myself, at times, like it's almost like this PTSD element, like bleeding in, where it's just like, all right, guys, we got to do this, we got to do that, and it's just like, all right, I got to kind of take a step back and just let the team do the work that they know how to do, and if I'm needed, I'm needed. But if not, it's, my role really to bring work in and keep everybody busy and meet all the customer needs. So that's sort of where I'm at now. Yeah.
That's good. That's definitely, I'm glad I asked. That was a good little segue into quality workplace. Because yeah, at the end of the day, you're not going to have a sustaining business, an enduring business, if you don't approach it, I think, the way you're approaching it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a creature of comfort, so I remember trying to justify the costs when we were building out our new shop of, I think it was paying, 75 or $80,000 to put HVAC in the entire shop, floor space, and it's one of those things where we live in an area where the climate is very Mediterranean, so it's generally pretty nice outside. But sometimes, it'll be 90, 100 degrees, and I would prefer for people to be like, "Gosh, I'm really not like itching to get out of work to step into a 100-degree, climate versus being in a shop that's, 110 degrees and being like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to leave, you know? So yeah, it's been good in that regard.
Very good. Give us a picture of what the shop looks like today. Number of people, machines. What's your specialty?
Yeah. 13 employees, 9 machines currently. We lean pretty heavily on automation, robot tending, and pallet systems, especially on the 5-axis mills. And on the ones that don't have automation, creating fixtures with high part density to utilize some nighttime cycle times. So yeah, there's 13 of us. We predominantly serve aerospace clients, which is going right into this in the very beginning. That's exactly where the name came from. Above All CNC, target market being spacebound
Oh,
hardware
nice.
was.
Like commercial space. Yeah.
Yeah, and some government stuff as well.
Okay.
So that was my initial target market. We work on a lot of very public facing projects. Think the space station, the International Space Station, and a lot of various probes to go image black holes. We had a bunch of hardware on that. If you recall that satellite test where they went and crashed into an asteroid to see if they could redirect it. It was called the
You remember
DART program. Yeah, so we had a lot of power and propulsion hardware on that. So that was kind of fun. I felt a little bit like Bruce Willis, like traveling to the asteroid to go blow it up or whatever. Like, and I forget what that movie was called, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. and some defense stuff as well. As needed. I'm always happy to work on those sorts of projects when they come up, and some consumer items as well. We make one of the fun ones that got written up in Modern Machine Shop was the bear-proof food canisters for a
Oh yeah,
company called Wild Ideas. He sells them online.
yeah.
Yeah, they're really cool. I've been making those for a very long time, and couldn't make them fast enough through COVID. So that was a fun, kind of backstop production job. And for a while there, we were doing everything turnkey for them. We were making the parts. We were doing all the carbon fiber bonding and everything, and packaging them up. And he would pick them up and slap a label on them, and off they go to the customer.
Hmm.
So that was kind of that's a fun one too that I believe really strongly in, just because of the conservation efforts with bears. And once they get accustomed to eating people food, then a lot of the times they get too comfortable and you got to put them down. So that's been like a nice little consumer product thing that we do as well.
So what you're saying there is bears should also thank a machinist.
I would say so, and me and the owner of that company joke that if they had opposable thumbs, they'd probably be in charge. But they're ridiculously smart, and they even recognize the billet aluminum and the black carbon fiber in between the cylinder, or that creates the cylinder. And a lot of the times they just leave those ones alone, and they go for the plastic ones that they could sit on and pop the top off and be on their way
Oh,
with all the treats. So.
uh,
Yeah, so that's been kind of a fun little project. Yeah.
just yeah, that was a bit of a joke, but reinforces the this thank a machinist thing that I always am on. Everything
Oh
in
yeah.
the world starts with machining one way or another, including bear food.
Every time I hop on a plane, I think about you saying that. I mean, I think a while back you had posted something on LinkedIn with a bracket that was
Sure.
familiar to you, and it's everywhere. I can't express how many times people stumble upon us, and maybe it's just somebody from the community that has like a broken screw in a fishing rod, and they're like, "Can you help me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, give me that thing. I'll go in the back and I'll, you know, take 10 minutes, take the screw out." And they, maybe give them a little shop tour if we all have the time and it's appropriate. And they're just fascinated. Like the first question I usually get is when they see a machine running, "Is that milk in
Yeah.
there?" No, that's coolant. But we work with the local the high school as well. They have it's called the Dos Pueblos Engineering Academy. That's where I went to high school.
Okay.
So they have some CNC machines there, and we'll try to work with a summer intern with a graduating senior, somebody that's going to like a 4-year or something
Nice.
for engineering, and yeah, try to help out the community in that capacity as well. So
Oh, it's a win-win. You get some
yeah.
help and help out a kid and program.
Yeah, and you never know. Sometimes it comes full circle. They wind up becoming a manufacturing engineer or mechanical engineer or something like that, and they graduate and they turn out and they go get a job locally because they naturally want to come back to this area because it's really beautiful, and they remember you, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to take a look at this project?" So
You've had that happen?
it has come full circle. Yeah,
Awesome.
not into any sort of major production, but
Sure.
it's nice that they remember you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Very good. Well, sounds like you have a very nice company there.
yeah.
Paint the picture of where you were at, what was going on when you decided you needed some better systems and software to help organize and run things.
Yeah. So, I mean, we implemented ProShop really early on. I think, yeah, we started about halfway through the year in 2016, and I think we onboarded with you around February of 2019. So
Hmm.
about 2.5 years of just kind of dealing with it on paper, and with one or two machines and one or two guys, it's pretty easy to kind of manage that workflow. But everything that we had been building in those 2 years, I knew what it was going to turn into, which was like some large projects. We're talking where you're going to need to push out maybe 150 to 200 work orders. And I'm like, dude, there's no way I'm going to be able to manage this the way I'm doing it. So that's what got me on the search. And I had used other ERP systems and implemented them at the previous company I worked at. And So I knew what they were about, and it wasn't really the direction that I wanted to go. I wanted something that was end to end. And so, yeah, we kind of, we worked with a lot of Excel sheets. I created this crazy rat nest to quote and everything, which is all these equations and hidden tables and stuff. And it was wild. It worked, but it was very fragmented. You're having to go here, go there, remember all these things, and so it was natural, and I remember, contacting you early on and being a little apprehensive about, the price. It was a big investment when you're bootstrapping a company and you're small.
Sure.
But once it kicked off, it was great. I mean, and we didn't use a lot of the features at first, because we were so small. It was mostly just like, wow, I'm really glad that it, generates a work order and we have, material certs attached. And so it was really just sort of a running list of jobs, and using it for estimating pretty early on was great as well. I mean, right now we're using it, I think, almost to its fullest potential. I mean, we're using the tooling modules, the quality modules, like all of our inspection AS9102 comes out of ProShop. All of our quality system is managed there. The sales aspect of it, I utilize almost daily, especially with the sales dashboard, which is just so important to know the direction and the health of your company. I would say one of the things that attracted me to ProShop specifically was Flying Start package was huge.
Yeah.
The fact that the modules in your software aren't behind a paywall, like you really have access to all of it in the beginning, and it just creates these reservations. It's like with a CAM software where you're like, oh, I have the 4-axis package, and boy, do I want to get into the 5-axis stuff. It's going to cost me another $20,000 or whatever it is, And so it was nice because you could just explore it and get comfortable with it and trial and error these other modules, and which we do all the time. It's like a daily activity, like diving into the nuance of the software. It's almost like playing an old video game, and and you're like, oh, I know if I move the guy here, like all the enemies are going to come and get me or something, and so I'll just avoid that spot. So you're just kind of really learning at a deep level how the software wants the inputs to be to give you the results, and which has just been a great exercise in business development too. I think you guys have done a really great job with structuring it in a like best business practice type format.
Yeah, some people have said it really is just like an operating system for how to run an effective manufacturing company. And
yeah,
that sounds similar to what you're describing.
Yeah, I've always, kind of echoing, your previous podcast, it keeps you on rails and it guides you through the process more or less, or you won't get the results that you have to have if you're not, using the system correctly, right? So it keeps everybody in line, but also, you are able, something I think I never really hear people say is you are able to use it in kind of in a rapid, quick and dirty type fashion too, which we do for some customers as well. So it's not one of those things where you're sort of stuck in a specific path, because we'll have small jobs come in that are, $400 minimum charge, and it's like, do I really want to spend all this time creating all this documentation for a customer that doesn't need it? And so we have, parallel processes that just really streamline that as well, which is pretty nice also. But you still have records of it, which is important.
Yeah, I remember, early on when I was doing demos and stuff, and people would say, well, we're a job shop, and sometimes we get a $500 order, and I don't want to spend half an hour, in a piece of software trying to make it work. And I'm like, let me show you. Like, you can make an estimate, a part, and a work order in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have just a record of what you did, and it takes 1 or 2 minutes for the guys to check things off and make a note about their time tracking, and then you're done. And you have a minute time investment, and then you know how you did. You have a record of what you did.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note too, I mean, that's what's so glorious about the whole thing is, I remember in implementation, I was very comprehensive with my estimates, like essentially laying out like a work order as if we were to be building the parts. And Vince was like, "Hey, I don't know if you want to spend this much time on it. Because what if you don't get the job?" And it's like, there's a lot of truth to that. So I kind of take a hybrid approach now, and it's very templatized. But the glory is when it does convert to an order. It's just so easy to push my thoughts, down through the ranks, and has really minimized the amount of planning activity that we need to partake in. Versus I've experimented with a couple of outside of ProShop estimating softwares, and I feel like I'm leaving a lot of balls up in the air when I'm trying to utilize those. So I've really just gone back to ProShop for all my estimating purposes, just because there's just less opportunity for error, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I know that there are folks out there, maybe some listening, that are skeptical about the importance of more thorough planning at the front end, which is essentially what you're doing with a scaled
Yeah.
estimating template. What would you say to the naysayers about more thorough planning? Is it worth the time investment on the back end?
Absolutely. I mean, every single time we have an issue on the shop floor, I can trace it back to something that went wrong in the planning process. And that could be something as small as, yeah, just a couple of weeks ago, I quoted these parts that have a lot of odd 80 helicoils. They have like 80 or 100 odd 80 helicoil holes in them. And I'm like, quoting them like, do they make odd 80 helicoils? Yeah, I guess they do now. Like, that's kind of news to me. But anyway, so, we kind of had an issue with the planning process, and because we've never done that small of a helicoil before. And so, quality planner put, just a standard odd 80 thread gauge in there, and came to find out, like, when it was realized on the shop floor that, oh, this is an STI thread. Like, oh shoot, I need to get that gauge. Like, well, they don't sell on McMaster or any of the other places, and so you're pulling custom quotes for this, and oh my gosh, it's going to be like a week until we get this, and it's literally in the machine or in the first article process. So,
Sure.
like, I mean, it's huge, and to be able to catch those things in advance, which is 99% of the time we do, is great, because the machine is your bottleneck. It's always going to be your bottlenecked resource, right? And at least for us, it is, I guess. And so the more work you're able to do up front, pre-staging tools, kitting tools, we do the offline tool pre-setting and everything, eliminating issues for run out. Like, that's all pre-planning stuff that, it's really easy to calculate ROIs on that, I think. Like a tool presetter, I think I had watched one of your guys' webinars and how you implemented that into Pro CNC. And yeah, you start doing the math on it, and it's like, oh yeah, this thing costs, this nice Zoller presetter costs $60,000 or whatever, but it's going to pay itself off in like 6 months or less. I mean, it's just a no brainer, So, so yeah, the planning aspect of it has been huge. Prior to ERP, I couldn't tell you how many times, like, we had a stock room with helicoils or dowel pins for, to satisfy some BOM requirements on a project or whatever. And we were kind of double selling helicoils, like, oh yeah, like, quote, or take this job in. Yeah, I got 100 of those. Cool. Like, not realizing there's, 2 other jobs that are using them as well. And then, you're kind of scratching your head when it comes time to do the final assembly. Like, oh my gosh, what happened? So, yeah, it's huge. I mean, having everything done in advance. And I don't think it takes a whole lot more effort. The glory of it too for us is, I'll check in an order and, fire off a message to planning, purchasing, quality planning, and programming, and they can all work on these things in tandem and collaboratively to kind of, scheme and come up with the best approach, to just make sure it gets through the shop as quick as possible. So it's massive. I think it means everything, honestly. So, yeah.
So good. And so what does that mean for just your peace of mind and just like the stress level of running a shop every day and having 1,000 things that could go wrong at any time? But
still very stressed, most of the time, but it's just a stressful industry, it's hard. I mean, gosh, I remember you have this part that comes out of the machine and you could show it to anybody walking down the street and they'd be like, that's beautiful. That's an amazing, like, wow, you made that? That's crazy. And you'd be like, yeah, and it's bad. This is a bad part because it's off by, the quarter of a thickness of a piece of paper, and so it is still stressful. But as far as project management goes, and making sure that I have visibility on customer due dates and project progress, profitability, like it has really lowered that level of stress that comes with that. Also on the sales side of things too, because there's a big difference when you're not using like ProShop or another ERP system. You're operating a lot on feel, and you might, hey, I feel like we're busy, or I feel like we're making money, or I feel like we have enough work, and that could very well not be true. Or you could have too much work, and it's like, gosh, there's no way, based off of our track record of monthly revenue, that any of this work is going to get done on time. So that's been pretty grounding for me, I would say, especially like the sales dashboard. If I'm like stressed out about our backlog, and how long are we busy for, what can I take in, etc. You can pop into that sales dashboard and see, oh, cool, I still have $1 million worth of backlog or something like that. I'm good for a while. I have some runway. Like I don't need to worry about not winning that quote or what have you. And so that's been pretty grounding as well too. So you're not, panicking unnecessarily just based off of a feeling or something like that. So yeah.
Some folks describe a machine shop as, my friend Matt calls it a pirate ship. It's just like, craziness all the time, or firefighting just constantly. And
unfortunately, I make a lot of food analogies, with our process, because it feels a lot like a restaurant, really, very similar in a lot of ways. Actually, some of the guys, our star in the quality department, we used to work at In-N-Out. So
yeah.
he's totally like, all right, man, like, these are hamburgers. Well, no, they're parts now, so, just moving them down the line, and kind of, falls in line with what you have talked about like the KFC machinist and things like that,
Indeed.
and yeah, those guys have been great. The guys that are exposed to that very rigid, E-Myth type process, so yeah.
Yeah, and folks that are accustomed to fast food and have the hustle to just keep things moving, those are super essential life skills, business skills.
Yeah, move with the purpose,
So,
yeah.
Did he work in manufacturing before he came to your shop, or did you hire him out of In-N-Out Burger?
Yeah, no, hired him out of the restaurant. I mean, he was a friend of mine's son, and so I knew him growing up. Super sharp kid, just kind of didn't really know what he wanted to do necessarily, which is, very common. And I was in the same boat when I was his age. And so, yeah, he was just kind of dying on the vine at the restaurant. It's like, am I going to do this forever? And it's like, dude, I come over here. I think you're going to be really good. Like, well, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, I really want you to be in quality, because I think, it was a good career path for him. And he's just wicked smart and very, very analytical. Yeah. So, he loves more of an introverted type person, so he loves being in the lab and just checking parts and inputting numbers. And we got him a couple of helpers now, so he'll kind of delegate some of the busy work tasks off to them. And now he's like our CMM programmer. He does all the crazy, articulating head programming and programs all the key and stuff. And yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, so he's thriving.
Good for you for giving him such an opportunity. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it the goal, for him specifically is, it's changed or whatever. Like, employee counts or staff ebbs and flows. So, but ideally, yeah, I would love to convert him into like a quality engineer type role. I think he's definitely got the knack for it. So he's gonna take a look at some classes and see what we can do, to excel his career even further. So
yeah, that's a real career right there. That's could have legs. That's cool.
Absolutely.
The ironic part is, I know there's probably millions hundreds of thousands of kids out there that are kind of aimless, not really sure what, and if they could connect to a job like, you offered this kid,
Yeah.
they would love it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's, even our new shop helper that we just hired a few months ago. I mean, gosh, he's having a blast, but he was just kind of bouncing around between these lost jobs, installing satellite dishes or solar panels or whatever. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with those jobs, but yeah, he was just struggling, so brought him on here as a shop helper. And hey, this is an entry level position. It's going to take some time, to learn, the skills that you need to be on machines. And he's been here for, maybe 6 or 8 months now. And we got him loading some parts on the machines, checking them, teaching him all the stuff. That's definitely one of the more fun parts, I think, of my role here. If I have the opportunity, if I'm not just fixated on sales, is, being able to teach and show them little tricks and things like that on the shop floor.
Super cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know that we've had some clients say that, ProShop has helped them put on a really good face for employees that want to, especially ones that maybe know the industry and are tired of working in dirty old shops that are always chaotic and paper everywhere. And has that been an attraction for the folks you brought on?
Yeah. Some of them that come through here for interviews are shocked. They're just like, what is this called? I've never seen this before. Some of them, and I ask in interviews now, have experience with ProShop. They're interviewing from another shop that utilizes it to varying degrees. Yeah, so I ask about that now because that's like a huge plus. I mean, I see that almost as valuable as having great experience with like CAM software, or I'm a master in SolidWorks or something like that. And it's like, oh, you already know how to clock in and out of jobs and write up a process development, and that you're supposed to check that box is complete. All these little things that you wind up coaching people on that have zero experience with it. And so that's been great. They have access to the information they need, and but not too much, which is good too, right? You can limit that based on users and trainings, which has been great. Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, I'll be honest, we were resistant at first, like having kiosks at every machine. We're like, we're going to do this on tablets, and then through our tenure here with ProShop, it's just like we've given up on trying to. I mean, we do some things our own way, but we just do it the way that you guys advise us to do it. So, and it works, So we have, little microcomputers and dual monitor setups at every machine. They have access to everything they need to do the job. Shadow boarded the toolboxes with all the necessary tools that they need. So it's huge, and I don't necessarily want them to be chained to a machine or anything. Like, don't leave. You have everything you need here, right? Like, yeah, go shoot the shit with your coworker while the machine's running. That's fine, But it's just nice to not have to look for. I can't tell you how much of my life I've spent just looking for stuff. Like, probably a cumulative of years in a disorganized shop. Like, where's this tool? Where's this bolt? And it's part of our sales pitch as well. I mean, we usually, if I'm giving a on-site shop tour, if we're lucky enough to have a customer come on site, which is just the best case scenario from a sales perspective, that's usually how I close the tour. Is let us show you, how we're going to make sure that we're managing your project extremely effectively. And we'll show them, we have a couple of sort of like dummy work orders that we've created that we use for training and for showing customers things, but showing them like the statistical analysis of the in-process inspections and like how their job is going to be scheduled and the backwards scheduling, to ensure that everything's kicking off on time, and what their inspection reports are ultimately going to wind up looking like at the end. And they're always like, what is the name of this? Like, can it be used for, large engineering firms? I'm like, I mean, you can talk to Paul about that, but it really just does so much more. I mean, even these, these are large companies, like publicly traded companies that are still struggling with, Oracle or whatever, SAP or, these big software packages. So they're always very impressed. And then the auditors too, it's been huge. I mean, our auditor generally is here for a couple of days. Does she need to be? No. We take a lot of breaks throughout the day and snack breaks. And I see her playing solitaire a lot because it's just like, I think if she really just wanted to get in and out, we could probably be done in like 8 hours, with a full AS 9100 audit. So that's been great, especially now that they're used to it. When we first were doing the AS 9100 certification, they had minimal exposure, and it was almost like they thought I was like trying to play a trick on them, like some sort of, yeah, see, we have everything right here. Oh yeah, I've seen this dog and pony show before, and it's like, no, it's really that simple, And so yeah, it's been paramount with our uh, journey in getting AS 9100 certified and becoming recertified. And in all honesty, we've never had like a legitimate finding on any of our audits. There was one that was kind of, she didn't like the way that we gave her some metric data because she had to look at it. She wanted it on a graph, and we gave it to her in a spreadsheet. And so she wrote us up for that. And yeah, we were like, okay, we're going to give you the win here. So, but yeah, I mean, I remember even talking to your consultants, and they're like, that's not even in the standard. Like, she can't write you up for that, but we just let it go. We let it go through. So yeah, so it's been great for that.
That's cool. So you got your AS for the first time with ProShop?
Yeah. I had some, experience in the shop I worked in previously with writing the manuals and implementing everything, and it was like very hard. So yeah, we did the flying start package with you guys.
Yeah.
Sat on that for a little while. We didn't implement all of that right away, but I knew that was the direction we wanted to go. And then, yeah, we eventually linked up with your consultants that you guys provide as well, and hammered through it. I think we started July, like 4 or 5 years ago or something. We started like around the beginning of July, and passed our audit in October.
Okay.
Didn't take long at all.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
In all honesty, our actual time that we put into it was maybe 4 weeks, if that, in that period of time. So really minimal effort. Being honest, we were operating in that capacity as it was anyway. So there was really no gap to close, but ProShop definitely was super helpful in that. So.
And you were running that way because you were just kind of following the ProShop system, the ProShop way of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and having had the experience of implementing that in a previous company, that's how I operated my company from day one. It was just a lot more complicated I mean, I can't tell you how many hours I would spend, filling out AS 9102 reports with, I think it was like a Discus Excel template with all these crazy, you had to memorize all the, Control Shift S will do a diameter symbol and all these, it was bananas. Yeah. So it was a method that we were like or a process that we were already doing, I suppose, as we were sort of already doing flight work at that point. But yeah, ProShop really just tied it all together. And now it's just this big, cohesive, like monster backbone that just drives the shop. It's great. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, that term backbone has come up in many conversations. Yeah, so that's awesome. I want to come back to comments you made about employees using it on the shop floor and having access to things. Mm-hmm. I did just a 15-minute phone call with a shop owner, I think 16, 19 people, somewhere right in there, who got really burned by another system a few years ago. And it's just like, he's like, if I make my machinists do this again, they'll quit. And I don't want them sitting there clacking on keyboards all day and not actually making chips. And I'm like, I totally get your reservations and your skepticism, because it was deserved from what you went through with your last experience. But what would you say because it's one thing to hear it coming from me. It's like, no, it actually will help with throughput. It'll help make jobs faster. It'll help them make chips more often.
Yeah.
How would you put your own emphasis on that point?
I mean, gosh, it's hard to articulate like verbally, right? Like it's like you want to show them, but like having been a machinist for my entire adult life, I mean something as simple as a setup sheet or revision control. I can't tell you how many times while not utilizing an ERP system, you wind up setting up a machine on the wrong revision, right? Because like the operator has no idea. Uh, they're just told, "Hey, make this," and they make 100 of them, and they're all wrong, or whatever. So there's just been so many times where I've been burned in that regard, either by a supervisor or by myself making a mistake, and that's real tangible scrap, like those parts are $100 a piece or whatever they are when they're finished goods, like. I mean, that's going to outstrip any cost in ERP software, or just time to just take a breath and sit down and just actually train and execute on it. So I can understand the reservations, and we have that comes up here and there internally as well. Somebody will, hey, I have all our jobs laid down on the spreadsheet, whatever. These are the due dates. It's like, I think ProShop does that. Let's dive into that. Really? Where? Like customer service dashboard. Oh, that's wow. Like, okay, cool. And it's all live and I don't have to update. Yeah, like it's great. So yeah, it's just one of those things that if you're, I mean, if you're committed to, you don't even necessarily have to be committed to like growth, like in revenue, but if you're committed to like streamlining your process, then I think it's an easy decision to make. I would equate it maybe. So I've had like machinists that have worked here that are very trusting of like our CAM software, and some that no matter what you put in front of them, they want to meddle with the code. They want it to look exactly the way that they want it to look. And I always ask them why. Why is it that it has to look exactly that way when it functions perfectly fine coming out of the software? All you have to do is kind of get used to, how it's going to appear to you, and you're golden. You're not having to waste all that time, doing that. And so it's kind of the same thing, really. Is just maybe it's a control thing. I don't know. People get very comfortable with the way that they're doing stuff, and change is hard. It's really hard to change people. But I think that, I don't know, it's just such a valuable asset. Like I couldn't imagine having to come into work like this morning, for instance, and having, I mean, no pro shop or anything, like having to walk the shop and try and figure out everything that's going on and digging through like a paper folder or an Excel spreadsheet and, trying to check up on customer due dates or something like that. Yeah, I just couldn't imagine. I mean, it does take time to get it implemented and implemented correctly and effectively within the organization, but it pays dividends in the long run. I mean, we could never be where we're at today, working on the projects that we're working on without it, and getting the customer feedback that we typically get. Like quite often, our packets that we ship with parts, which I mean, some of these first articles, like I'm running off like half a ream of paper, like these are hundreds of pages for helicoils and helicoil material search and dowel pins and plating and this and lap shear testing and on and on and on, and maybe 200 attributes on a print that have to be accounted for. That alone is just such an ace in the hole to be able to mine that data while you're in process and then essentially click print at the end and have it all bottled up into a PDF. I mean, I don't know how anybody could say that isn't just extremely high value.
Mhm.
I wouldn't even know where to begin to calculate like an ROI on it. It would be the difference between us being, let's say a $5 million a year company to a $2.5 million a year company, or something like that. I mean, I've seen where people's revenues go that are doing it on paper, and it's extremely hard to grow and scale. So, like I was saying, or maybe I did already say this, but our packages that we print out a lot of the times get used as examples when maybe our customers are not outgrowing us, but they've grown to a point where we can't, supply them with all the parts they need.
Right.
So they need to find new vendors, and they find this shop. Yeah, they make good parts, but their documentation is garbage. And they ask permission a lot of the times. Hey, can we use one of your guys' AS 9102 packet, or yeah, 9100 or 9102 packets as an example to show them what this is supposed to look like? And that
Wow.
is quite common, honestly, just because of how comprehensive it is. And it literally, it checks all the boxes. I mean, even when you guys more recently, I think it was a year or two ago, and the forms went to Rev C or something like that, or Rev D.
Yep.
And you guys were on it, with an update, and, auditor came in, hey, this is already happening, right? And it's like, yeah, we've already done it, implemented, done deal. Like, oh, cool.
Love that.
No further conversations as far as that goes, so
I'll share that feedback with the product team. They're definitely all over that kind of stuff.
yeah, no, it's important,
Yeah.
It's very important.
It's like
So
a critical thing.
yeah, absolutely.
That is so good. Tim, let's just talk maybe a little more general about the business.
Mhm.
What does it mean to you to be an owner of a business like this?
I mean, it means a lot. I mean, when I got into this industry, and yeah, it was like 2003. So, being in high school during like the 9/11 situations and all that, and then America goes to war, I felt like I was best utilized after I got into manufacturing. We did a lot of defense stuff at the other company, and I wasn't enlisted in the any of the Army or Marines or what have you, any of the services. But I felt like my time was and skill set was best applied towards providing, like our troops in that period of time with the absolute best product they could get, like because that's, what they deserved. So,
Mm-hmm.
early on, I was very driven, by that. I've kind of pivoted, in our target markets to more research based type projects. And it's really nice to be able to integrate with the customer at a very deep level, have a very like deep understanding of their product and what they need and how it's going to function and where it's going to go and what it's going to do for mankind. So to be involved in that is it feels very special. Somebody that isn't formally educated in college and things like that, didn't go get a degree, to be able to still be involved in these big otherworldly projects is very gratifying. So that's been nice. There was this project we did, and I wanted to do something with you because you guys had that powered by ProShop kind of slogan there for a while, and so we spent about 4 years building all of the machine parts, or about 75% of the machine parts for the new solar panels that are being deployed on the space station. I think they have maybe 2 more to do. And so, yeah, I think we made a total of 8 of those. And I was like, man, that would be so great. Like utilizing like that. That's the reason why I brought ProShop, was that contract, which was up through Boeing. And that would be really cool to like do a piece on like, not only or is the shop powered by ProShop, but the space station is like, powered by ProShop or whatever. So, and that project was awesome, because, and I told this story in the Modern Machine Shop article, but on the first deployment that the 2 first units that they sent up there on a SpaceX rocket, they were going to broadcast the live feed on NASA TV. So they go to do it. It was on Father's Day, actually, a number of years ago. And so I wake up at 6 a.m. and my daughter was, 4 at the time or something, and she wanted to wake up with me. And so I'm drinking a cup of coffee and we're watching this NASA thing, and you're literally watching these guys manhandle and bonk their space helmets into all of these aluminum and titanium and 15.5 stainless parts that you made. Like here, like I have them in our conference room, like sample parts. And so it's rare that you actually get to see that happen. And then golly, yeah, like they were getting ready. The things are all folded up and they're bolting them on there, and they have this socket extension that we made for them to put on the next launch. So they could get to a specific bolt that we made. And they go to do it, and they go to unfold it, and like something gets stuck, and I'm like, what is going on? And so I'm not really paying attention, sitting on the couch. I'm probably on my fourth cup of coffee, just nervously watching this thing happen, wondering if it's something that we made. It ended up being like a very elementary engineering issue, and they just had to kind of work through it while they were up there. And so then they put it on hold, and the next week they wound up deploying it, and everything went off, flawlessly. But so it was like, nerve wracking, but also very cool to, be able to share that. And, you look at like how many people are logged in watching this while it's happening. And it's like millions of people that are like looking at, like, they don't know I made it, but
Sure.
I did. And they're looking at that, and it's pretty cool, to be able to see that. So that's been like a very, very gratifying part of the job is, naturally, like in my nature, I just want to be helpful with people. So, to be able to be helpful and also provide them with I think a premier product is pretty fun. So,
Oh man, that is a great story. Happy to throw a powered by ProShop sticker over to NASA if they want to stick it on those, maybe in the back, because it would cover the solar panels in the front. But yeah,
yeah, there you go.
Cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, at the time that would have been such a great, gosh, man. But yeah, I think I had approached the customer, and at the time they were kind of in stealth mode, so
sure,
they didn't want it getting out there. But
yeah, that's all good. Yeah, I can tell you, there's so many projects that we cannot share about what our customers work on and how it helps humanity.
I know it's a bummer. There's just some really cool things that are out there. Cutting edge that. Yeah, you got to sign all these NDAs, and you can't talk about them. And it's just like, man, I feel like everybody should know about this or what's coming down the pike, and how cool it is. So it's neat to be involved at a very fundamental level. When things are kicking off like that. So.
Well, if they were more public about it, there'd probably be more young kids interested in going into manufacturing and engineering and machining and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I get the sense that it's hopefully turning around. I really hope it is, because it's tough to see, these kids that, not everybody's cut out for college, and they just don't know this kind of stuff exists, and it would be cool if they were, exposed to it at a younger age or more publicly, so get them interested in it. So.
Yeah. Well, Tim, we're just about out of time here. This podcast is called Manufacturing Transformed. And I know you didn't have your shop all that long before you decided to go digital with ProShop, but does it feel like it's aptly named and you really have had a transformational journey in your business?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Yeah. There's just so much going on in a shop. I mean, we're a small shop, but there's just so much going on at all times. And so it's very, well structured and kind of, a guiding light, like we'll even sit down, like me and my quality manager on how to organize a purchase order or something to get all of the inspection, to appear correctly. And so it's like a daily exercise of like best practice. So I think it's definitely, absolutely transformed the company for the better. I couldn't see anybody going any other direction software wise. So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you have a very special thing going on, and thank you for the trust and letting us be a partner with you and do all the cool things you do.
Yeah. No, thank you, Paul. Yeah, we appreciate all the support and the product. It's great. So love it.
So hopefully there's a whole ream of engineers clamoring to do work with you now. If they did, where would you suggest they reach out to you?
They can just look at our website. It's aboveallcnc.com. All the contact information is on there. And we always look forward to working on new projects, new customers, new engineers. It's always super fun. So welcome any inquiries that there might be. So
awesome. Well, Tim, thank you again for all this time. I really appreciate it. And it was just very gratifying to talk to you and hear hear what you're doing there at Above All. Super cool.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thank you for having us.
You bet.